Alright folks, I want to talk a little bit about same-sex spouses. Okay, so really simple, straightforward, IRS loud and clear. Since 2013, if you're legally married and you're married, okay? Full stop. Really simple. Doesn't really matter it's the same-sex spouse or the opposite-sex spouse. Doesn't really matter. No matter your gender, okay? As long as you're legally married, you're married, and you can file, married filing jointly or married filing separately. Doesn't really matter. You can choose. So, the same-sex couple who tie the knot in any U.S. states or foreign country, and there's a little bit but here, if it's a foreign country, that foreign country should legalize same-sex marriage. Okay, so the foreign country where the same-sex marriage is legal, okay, are treated exactly the same as the opposite-sex couple for the federal tax purpose. Okay, so really simple. That means that they can choose just like the opposite-sex couples to file like married filing jointly or married filing separately. Okay, so basically you just you can combine or separate income and deductions exactly the same way. Okay, so there's like no exception here. So there's like as long as legally married, just legally married, and just remember there's a little catch here. So I said you have to be legally married. So what about you are in a domestic partnership or a civil union? Okay, or a registered partnership. Okay, so basically if you live in a state and your state call it almost a marriage, okay, they used almost marriage term and say, well, but in fact it's a domestic partnership, it's a civil union, it's a registered partnership, all that. Okay, that is the catch, because the almost marriage is not like the legally married. Okay, so basically in terms of IRS, I'm not talking about the legislation here, I'm talking about the tax purpose. From the IRS point of view, unfortunately they can't recognize this, they can't consider this as a merit for federal tax reasons. Okay, of course they may be considered properly married, almost a marriage in certain states. We can even call that, but unfortunately from the federal tax point of view, that is not married. Okay, you can't consider married for the federal tax reasons. So if that is the case, you would generally require to file, for example, single or head of a household, which I'm going to explain later. Okay, and basically if you're supporting a qualifying person, you can file the head of a household, but otherwise you should file single, unfortunately. And also you have to remember we're talking about the IRS point of view, so it's like a federal level, but different states do have like different quirks. So for example, like California, right? So California, they recognize both marriage and registered domestic partnership. So if if you're in California, you are in a registered domestic partnership, at the federal level, you still need to file single for federal tax reasons, but the California state tax, you can find like jointly. So basically, like different state have a different specific state level tax. As well as file requirements, so you have to obey that as well. So like different level of a compliance. So for example, Wisconsin or Nevada, okay, they also got like community property state. So basically, the community property law can also affect how a married same-sex couple divide income. Okay, if they file separately. Under that specific law, state law, you still need to comply with that as well. Okay, so basically, even though maybe same sex couple, they recognize IRS federal tax level, they both recognized federally, but the state tax may define how to allocate the joint income and deductions. Okay, so for example, New Jersey, right? New Jersey's got like domestic partnership, okay, and also New Jersey also allow domestic partners to file jointly on the state return. But you know what, IRS seems a little bit a conflict because IRS say, hey, you can't. You can't do that. You can't file jointly because it's not like the legally married, even though it's nearly married as a domestic partnership. So it can get a little bit complicated because you know what? Some law say, hey, you can do this. Some law say, hey, I don't recognize that. Okay, so you know what? It's still a ongoing dynamic process. So it's not like set yet. As I'm recording this, I'm giving you the best information that I can find, as well as the latest legislation. Of course, when you watch this, maybe some law already at state level or federal level already updated. So I strongly recommend, if your scenario like this, do check the latest information, okay, or consulting a professional to do that. So yeah, that's some of the like little bit catch for the same-sex couples.